Hello and welcome to a special episode of The Racing Report with Rob Peeters. As the name implies, my name is Rob Peeters and I'm your host. Normally we would talk about the news, typically on a show like today, but instead we're going to do something a little bit different. Today we're going to rank the top 5 NASCAR moments of 2024 because it was a huge time in NASCAR. There were a lot of major moments that did happen that honestly will be remembered probably for years and decades to come. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in to the number 5 biggest moment in NASCAR 2024, and that simply put is the NASCAR shines at Indianapolis. The Brickyard 400 came back after a 3-year hiatus. And to be honest with you, I think the Next Gen car delivered there. Put on for a very entertaining race, albeit the finish was a bit controversial. But Kyle Larson won the race, and the big deal with that is this kind of goes for a twofer. But the other biggest part was because NASCAR shined at Indianapolis, it was also Kyle Larson who shined at Indianapolis in both the Indianapolis 500 and the Brickyard 400. That in and of itself was such an exciting moment and a historical moment, to be honest with you. It was probably a moment that we're all going to look back on and think to ourselves, man, I can't believe he did that. Like, he conquered Indianapolis, and now he's going to go back and he's going to do it again next year, barring no rain. Let's hope there's no rain like this year. But, you know, he missed the Coca-Cola 600 because of that rain. And so when he missed the Coca-Cola 600, I very well think that could have influenced why he didn't win a championship. So for that reason, that's why NASCAR at Indianapolis and / Kyle Larson, his prowess at Indianapolis cost him the championship. That might possibly cost him the championship. That's why that's the number 5 NASCAR moment of 2024, at least on this list. Now, number 4 is probably one of the most controversial things in the world, and that's Harrison Burton's Daytona win. Because here's the thing. The reason why this is number 4 is because this should have been a major NASCAR moment. This should have been a moment in NASCAR where, you know, we were talking about this nonstop. This was the feel-good moment. This was the best moment. And I'm sure a lot of fans who are fans of Harrison Burton probably did feel that way. It does, and I don't mean to take away anything from that, but the major talking point after that win was not about Wood Brothers' 100th win in NASCAR. That was not the big deal. It was not about Harrison Burton getting his first win, knowing that he's going to be leaving the team. He's going to be replaced by Josh Berry. That was not the big story. The big story was the fact that the full-time car that was dead last in points was going to now race for a championship in 2 weeks' time. That was the biggest story. We weren't talking about the feel-good things. We weren't talking about what we needed to be talking about. We were talking about the fact that the playoff system, quite honestly, is still flawed. And yes, the playoff system in and of itself is a big moment, but this set off, I think, an already outrageous several weeks of NASCAR. We had just came off the previous week where Austin Dillon basically had his playoff berth taken away from him because NASCAR deemed that he wrecked 2 drivers in turn 4 in order to win the playoffs, win his way into the playoffs, I should say. Then you have Harrison Burton go out there and get into the playoffs and take possibly a spot away from maybe a more deserving driver. Possibly that person was Chris Buescher, who then went out a couple weeks after that and beat Shane Van Gisbergen, one of the arguably the best road racer in NASCAR and a multi-time Supercars champion, multi-time Bathurst 1000 winner. He goes out there, Christopher Buescher goes out there and beats him at his own game, but he wasn't in the playoffs, and the win basically went for naught. I mean, the win's a win in the column, but it didn't do him any good, like it would have had it came a couple of weeks earlier. So for that reason, Harrison Burton's win at Daytona, I think, set off a domino effect that could potentially alter how NASCAR now determines its champion. We'll see. All right. Now for the number 3 moment. This might be a little bit questionable. Some people might wonder, why are you putting this at number 3 at all? But NASCAR Cup Series, the NASCAR Cup Series going to Iowa Speedway, I think is the number 3 biggest moment of NASCAR 2024. Because if you look at the crowd that was there during the race weekend, if you look at the reception among locally in Iowa, this was arguably one of the biggest things to happen in that state and in that area. Because if you've ever been to Iowa Speedway, you know it's quite literally in the middle of nowhere. It's surrounded by corn. There's not much to do in Newton, Iowa. Not saying there's anything wrong with that. It's a beautiful area if you like corn. But let's be honest, if you're the average Joe who's trying to be, and you're trying to sell somebody on Newton, Iowa, you better have a good product to come with it. And I think that they delivered. NASCAR delivered, the fans delivered, and I think overall the race delivered. The race was very good. Now, did it affect the IndyCar race with the repaving? Yes, but this is a NASCAR episode. If you want to hear an IndyCar episode, stay tuned for that. That's coming up. But that's really what we're talking about here. The NASCAR race at Iowa, the Cup race, specifically the NASCAR Cup race at Iowa, was probably one of the best things to happen to the sport, and I don't think NASCAR planned for that. I really do believe that NASCAR figured that this race was going to be a placeholder, but now I think it might be a permanent fixture on the Cup schedule. Now in for number 2. Number 2, this is going to be a fun one. Simply put, we had a lot of flips during NASCAR 2024. Cars getting upside down, cars getting airborne. And that was really a big story for several weeks when that happened. And the thing is usually, if you've watched NASCAR for years, you've seen flips happen at super speedways traditionally. Not saying they haven't happened at other race tracks, but primarily they're easiest to happen at a super speedway like Daytona or Talladega. We saw 2 of them at Michigan. I was at the Michigan race for the Xfinity Series as a fan, was at the Cup race until it got rained out, had to go home. So I didn't get to see Corey LaJoie's flip on Monday, but I did get to see Kyle Sieg's flip, which, not to get off topic, but was very eerie because I also was at the last IndyCar race at Michigan Speedway and Michigan International Speedway, and I saw Dario Franchitti go airborne and flip after he tangled with Dan Weldon. That was scary. And then I see Kyle Sieg, and I was honestly getting kind of like weird flashbacks. And then I thought to myself, if you're my age, you know this, the Professor Doofenshmirtz of Phineas and Ferb. If I had a nickel for every time I watched a car flip at Michigan International Speedway, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that happened twice. Anyway, that was one of the biggest things. So we had flips at Michigan, which triggered NASCAR to actually go in and change the aerodynamics. And what did that do at Daytona a couple weeks later? Not much, because Josh Berry got upside down. Now, he didn't tumble like Ryan Preece did in 2023, because NASCAR or Daytona has now paved the entire backstretch, which, believe me, is going to be weird during the Rolex 24. It was already weird looking at it during the Coke Zero Sugar 400, but now during the Rolex 24, it's going to be even weirder. But yes, all the flips in the NASCAR season, yeah, 100%. That is definitely a top 5 moment, and it has to come in at number 2, because you had it started off like this too. You had you had Taylor Gray flipping in the Truck Series race at Daytona. So you started it off right the bat. That was the key, that okay, we're going to see a lot of flips. And then Tyler Reddick decided, we'll finish this one off. I'll flip at Las Vegas and then go out the next week and win at Homestead and lock myself into the championship 4. Which, by the way, flipping at Vegas, man, that's apparently, and that was the second or third time, I think, that since NASCAR has been at Las Vegas that a car has flipped there. So 2024, year of the flip, maybe. I still think 2009 kind of had that vibe going, but 2005 as well, if you count ARCA as well, the whole disaster in that Daytona race at the end. Oh my gosh, I could go and on about that. But instead of doing that, I think we'll talk about our number one most the number one, the top moment in NASCAR 2024, and that simply put was all the close finishes. We saw so many close finishes. We actually broke the record that was held all the way back at 2023, the most famous NASCAR finish of all time. Kurt Busch, Ricky Craven, Darlington, 2003. I can recite the last 3 laps, the commentary on that, by heart. That's how many times I've watched it. That's how many times that clip has been ingrained into my noggin. That is, it is the biggest deal. But we beat that. We beat that this year. First, we had a 3-wide finish at Atlanta to start the season. A 3-wide photo finish that Daniel Suarez won, probably saved his job. He won that race. Kyle Busch comes up close but no cigar. And now, honestly, if you think about that, that difference that Kyle Busch lost by was the difference between him extending his streak of every year winning a NASCAR Cup Series race into 20 or the 20 seasons. Just, man, what could have been, right? What could have been? And then you look at, again, what could have been the most crushing one is probably the Xfinity Series at Texas. If you're a Ryan Sieg fan, if you're somebody who follows Ryan Sieg, you know that story where we're talking about a guy who just does everything in his power. He is just an independent, family-run team. He's got Ford power now. He's got some backing from Ford, and he's really trying to make that team and turn it into a race-winning team and get into the playoffs with a win, not by on points. Came up so close. Sam Mayer beat him. I thought at that moment, I thought it was all Ryan Sieg. I thought we were going to be celebrating a Ryan Sieg victory, but no. And the run to the finish, chef's kiss. Perfect. Spectacular. I could rewatch that Xfinity race all off season, to be honest with you. And that's not something I expected to say about a NASCAR race at Texas. I'll watch IndyCar races at Texas until the cows come home, but a NASCAR race at Texas, you got to pick and choose those. Not this one. And then, again, not long after that, Cup Series comes back again. We have a late race restart at Kansas that triggers a 4-wide photo finish that ends in the closest finish in NASCAR history, again beating out that 2003 Darlington race between Kurt Busch and Ricky Craven. Kyle Larson is going to have that dub. And again, going back to it, talk about finishes that altered the outcome of NASCAR. Chris Buescher, had he beaten Larson to the line, or perhaps had the start-finish line been straight, as some say it wasn't. I'm not editorializing, I promise. Chris Buescher could have been in the playoffs and then advanced with his win, hypothetical win, in Watkins Glen. Again, all of these things could have changed. All of these things could have changed the outcome of NASCAR 2024, all because of these insanely close finishes that we as fans were treated to. And then it didn't end there. Talladega weekend comes around, and we get a close finish in trucks. Yeah, not maybe as close as these, but still a relatively close finish between Grant Enfinger, with Grant Enfinger winning the race. And then the Cup Series comes in on Sunday and does it again with Stenhouse beating Keselowski. Of course, I think Keselowski got the last laugh because he stole a sponsor, but that's neither here nor there. That was, in and of itself, a crazy race. And that was a playoff race where we're talking about 2 non-playoff drivers. I think Keselowski had been eliminated at that point. Running to the finish at Talladega. And it's another close finish. And yes, you could say, oh, well, it's Talladega. But still, close finishes at Talladega, that's what we want. That's what fans want. That's what NASCAR tries to recreate. That's what NASCAR tries to give us. That's why we have green, white checkers. That's why we do these things. That's why we have multiple overtimes, so that we can kind of manufacturally create a potential photo finish like these. And regardless of how your feelings of that are, it's still really cool. It's still made for a great season of NASCAR. So, with that said, that's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you agree with this list, let me know. And if you disagree with this list, let me know your top 5 NASCAR races of 2024 or NASCAR moments of 2024. You could go ahead and find me on social media and tell me right there. You could find it right here below. It's at RPEETERS, RPeters33. Remember the 2 E's. And that helps me know that you watch the show, you support this show, and I love hearing from you guys. I want to know exactly what your thoughts are on the top 5 moments of NASCAR 2024. So with that does it for this episode of the Racing Report. My name is Rob Peeters, and I will see you next time.